Hi, my name is Jason Tako, and today we're going to be painting this old stone bridge I painted before, starting with a oil prime linen canvas. And what I did is I gave this a very slight wash of alizarin, crimson, viridian, and a touch of white just to cool this down. I have a tendency to paint a little too warm on overcast days. And I think it might be because I paint so much on sunny days, and I always paint under the cool blue skylight. And then when I get under this warmer gray light, it just, I don't know, must throw my eyes off or something. By the way, hit the subscribe button if you haven't subscribed yet. And do me a favor, hit the like button. Let me tell you the colors on my palette: titanium white, cadmium lemon, cadmium orange, yellow ochre, ultramarine, no, not ultramarine blue, transparent red oxide, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and viridian. Doing a more limited palette today. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the main part itself, which is the bridge. Underneath of this bridge, there's this dark shape, and I want to get that dark shape in first. Now that dark shape is not it's not a full strength dark, that's for sure. So I'm going to lighten things up a bit and using ultramarine blue and transparent red oxide, which is pretty darn close to burnt sienna. And let's draw out an initial composition. I have to ask myself, what's most important in this scene? What do I really want to capture? And for me, it's the underneath of that bridge in the water. There is some beautiful fall colors here too, but let's come straight across when it's approximate of this bridge. I'm going to try to keep this light for right now. The arch is going to be pretty much right in the middle, which, you know, compositionally you've heard that's a no-no, but sometimes you can get away with it. I'm going to see if we can get away with it here. This is an outdoor sketch anyway. If I don't like it, I can go back in the studio and fix it. Okay, what I'm doing now is I actually held my brush up to this angle underneath the bridge. I want to go down further to see how much of an angle this cuts away perspective wise. And basically that's a trick for getting perspective right when you're painting on the fly. Is just hold your brush up, hold it up to the angle of whatever you're painting, and then just bring your brush down your canvas and copy that angle, and you should be home free. Okay, then this comes down like this as a reflection. Some foliage coming down like that. So right now I'm just thinking purely composition. I'm trying to visualize what this is going to look like. I don't obsess over composition when I'm out painting, but if I can get it looking decent from the start, why not? If I have the time. Nice thing about overcast days like this is that the sun's not going to change anytime soon. Okay, so I don't like this composition. I don't like how everything's very centered. Now we have this is almost totally centered, and this is going to kind of destroy my cool undercoat here. But I don't like how it's centered from a vertical perspective, if you will. So let's move this bridge up more toward the top. This comes across like that. Gonna get a little quiet on you here because I'm just making determinations and decisions, and there's no sense in telling you what I'm doing until I figured out myself what the heck I'm doing. By the way, for those of you who are new to the channel, I will tell you this, because I can think about this while I'm doing it. What I do is I show the first 20 minutes, give or take, to the YouTube public, and then the rest is reserved for my Patreon supporters. So if you want to see this video, the whole thing, without commercial interruptions, click on the link below, become a Patreon supporter. I know sometimes people say it would have been nice to see the whole thing. You can. Just join Patreon. And like I said, that's the benefit of being a Patreon member. And that's to thank my Patreon supporters for their generous support, which enables me to keep doing this. Makes it worth the while. So, alright, so this curve comes down here, right about there. I'm not going to obsess too much over this curve and getting it perfect. I'm actually going to purposely kind of mess it up a little bit, just to emphasize the fact it's a reflection. And some people might call that kind of a cop-out. If I wanted, I could, get that shape perfect, but it's really not necessary, and I think it's going to look better if it isn't perfect. We'll see. I might eat my words later. Most likely only my Patreon supporters will know that. So, all right, so darkest dark in the scene is this underbelly of the bridge. So let's get that in first. But as I said before, it's not a full strength dark, so you don't want this to go in completely black. I'm going to try to leave this a bit transparent for now. And then this dark does come down here a bit. We have this landmass going away here. But then when we get down into the reflection of the dark, it warms up and it lightens up. So what I'm going to do is just add some yellow ochre to my mixture. Maybe a touch of iridium, because it almost seems like it gets a little greener down there too. And that should at least start to do the trick. Reflections are usually a duller version of what they're reflecting. Duller in that if it's reflecting the dark, it's usually not going to be as dark. Look at that, I am actually doing the circle pretty much how it is, but I'll probably, like I said, mess it up later. And it's a more neutralized version. So if it's reflecting something really dark, it's usually not going to be as dark. And if it's reflecting something that's really light in value, it's usually not going to be as light. It's going to be just kind of a subdued version of what it is. Okay, there's some dark rocks down in here, and back here there's some darker reflections. A little bit of dark in there. Don't paint stuff at this point, paint shapes. Shapes of color and value. Alright, so I want to mass in the entire bridge and its approximate tone. You might hear some banging in the background. There's construction. They tore down another old bridge down the road that actually cars drive on. The cars don't drive on this bridge anymore, but they're fixing it up. I'm sure that'll take them about 10 years or something, but just right down the road. So you hear banging, that's what's going on. Okay, so I almost see a touch of alizarin in this. This is very grayed down stone. A little tricky to paint. There's a lot of color going on in this stone that you might not be aware of right away until you're out here painting. If you took a photograph of this and tried to do the photo, you probably definitely wouldn't be aware of it. but I'm going to go in relatively thin. And right now I'm just playing with ochre, ultramarine, transparent red oxide, alizarin, and white. Now, one thing I definitely want to get is the difference between this tone overall. When I squint at this, I'm seeing this is a little bit lighter value, has a little bit more of a cool alizarin color. I also see greens and browns in there and things like that. But what's the overall color and value of this down here? It actually, to me, looks less red. It almost seems like it bends slightly more toward green, and it's a little bit darker in value. Okay, which is interesting because this reflection is lighter in value than this, but this reflection looks overall slightly darker in value than that. I'm not sure exactly why, but you don't have to necessarily answer why, you just have to paint it as it is. So I'm going to go with a little more transparent red oxide and Viridian. I don't want to throw just pure Viridian in there because that's just going to go way too cool. Remember, we're dealing with neutrals. We want to keep everything neutralized. I got to make sure, though, that I keep this lighter than that. Constantly comparing relationships when you're doing this. So this is what's tricky about a scene like this, is that this has to be darker than that overall, but it's got to be lighter than this, and this is lighter than that. By the way, if you're interested, I do teach live online painting classes. It's called Oil Painting Plus. If you just type in oilpaintingplus.com, and plus has to be spelled out, it will take you to my page where you can see. You can sign up for demo membership right away. That's where you get to watch my monthly studio demos and attend the live Q&A and critique sessions. You can get your paintings, critique whatever you're working on right now, anonymously during a live session, or just watch the recording later and email it to me. And you can do that. You can sign up for that stuff right away. And then, if you want to, this only opens up once a month, but I teach live online classes through Zoom, and you get everything else I mentioned, but what you get on top of everything else is you get to paint with me live, usually on Saturdays, about 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern time, and get feedback, critique, ask questions, all that stuff. So it's a really cool, unique painting experience compared to what you're going to find out there on the web. I know other people are doing some Zoom stuff and everything, but this is on an ongoing basis. You can cancel whenever you like. So I'll let you know that. If you do the Zoom thing, you just get to watch the, that's only $5 a month. You get to watch the my plein air videos here for, in their entirety. So just want to let you know about that. Starting to get a bit of drizzle, feels like. I might have to put the umbrella up over the camera. Now what I need to start doing is blocking in a bit of color. It's a beautiful autumn color we have going on here. Let's neutralize that a bit. I might have to make this foliage back here a little bit lighter in value than what I'm seeing it. We'll see, but in order to make that bridge pop out more. When I squint at this, and this is a problem with overcast days, is that everything kind of ends up, reducing down to the same value except for those intense autumn leaves. And that might look cool, that might not. You know, I am fond of paintings where there's a lot of similar value going on. But I do want to keep my options open as well. Let's get some of that green down in here. Keep it loose and sketchy for now. I might leave it loose and sketchy, we'll see. Especially if it starts pouring on me. And this is all just loose realism. And my approach is I like to come at things, you know, most things from a somewhat loose approach, and then bring it into realism as I see fit and leave other things loose. That's kind of my personal philosophy with painting. Let's get some worms in here, because they are in there. That's a bit too warm. Let's cool that. Massing in approximates right now. This gets overall a bit darker in here. There's actually a lot of mud on this hill over here. Compared to reflections, with what they're reflecting, there's a lot of separation there, so it makes it a little more challenging, but you still want to do that as much as possible. I'm not obsessing over color just yet. I'm really more after getting a good value map in with an approximate color temperature so that I can work off of and plan the composition. And, well, just really the color relationships more than anything else. Okay, so I'm going to stop there for the YouTube public. If you want to watch the rest, join Patreon, $5 a month. You get to see the whole thing, as well as my other videos. But thank you very much for watching, and hit the like button. Do me a favor if you could, and subscribe if you haven't, and we will see you again.